Welcome, selectors, to this Decktech. I have a fun deck for you today. The magical LRIG, Milulun, and her spell-themed deck. Lancelot, and then plays their piece, Blue Knight Show. This is brutal for red, as blue will choose to put the Musica de Sona on the bottom of red's deck. Then blue will choose to draw 3 cards. And finally, we'll make red have to discard 2 cards at random, and red has to discard a servant. Next, blue will activate Milulun's once per game, looking at the top 10 cards, grabbing 2 spells from among them, putting them to the check zone, and then casting each spell one at a time. In this case, they grabbed 2 troubles, drawing 3 cards, and then drawing 3 cards. And the attack comes through from Milulun, and we have good game. This deck is focused on casting a lot of spells each turn, giving you good card advantage. We are running 11 spells in this deck, which does take from your level 1s and your level 2s, and it is more of a blue-focused deck with a splash of black and red. Taking a closer look at Milulun herself, she is a spell-taxing LRIG with built-in removal and the ability to cast up to 4 enter worth of spells for free. She does require you to build your deck around spells, and sometimes her once per game can miss. Overall, she is a medium risk, high reward LRIG. Her pieces such as Innocent Battle allow her to manipulate either hers or her opponent's trash, and Blue Knight Show can help with card advantage or as a nice removal spell. Overall, we want these pieces to give us the best chance for her once per game to hit or for us to have a lot of spells in hand to cast. Moving on to her assists, we have Machina with her Machina Wing Slash and Machina Smash. Both good removal that also allows us to get back some good SIGNI from our trash. When paying early enter cost, Machina Wing Slash allows us to get back the level 1 that you used to pay for like a grow or something. And the Smash can get back an m-odem, which is the key SIGNI in this deck. On the other side, we have Hanyo with Hanyo Sakura and Hanyo Pomegranate. This gives you 3 more instances of Vanish and 1 instance of Enter Charge, which is crucial for some of the early turns to be casting a lot of spells on. Don't underestimate that extra Enter early in the game, and being able to vanish up to 2 SIGNI based on your hand size late game can be crucial, as it could be that last damage that wins you the game. Moving on to the deck itself, we're starting at level 1. First up is Madoka Memoria, code Anti, as a 3-of, synergizing with our discard abilities to either draw another card or enter charge 1 for that crucial enter. This effect can happen up to 2 times a turn. Next up is Manamin Azure Evil as a 2-of, giving us the ability to turn our cards into discard for the opponent, potentially cutting them off of a key early synergy or having to make a hard decision early in the game. Of course, like any good Wixoss deck, we have 4 mismatched foil servants, as we didn't have 4 of a single type of foil servant. Next up, we have a 3-of Hequet Azure Angel. She allows us to arrange the top of our deck, potentially setting up good spell turns or setting up for Milulun's once per game. We are now moving over to the level 2s, starting with Bruno Azure General as a 2-of. She allows us, when she's in the center lane, to either draw a card or make our opponent discard a card. On attack, once again turning on our discard synergies. Next up is Typhon Doomed Evil as a 2-of. As we don't use exceed cost for our LRIG, we can use our exceed cost here to make a 15k in any lane. Some decks just can't get around that. Rounding out our level 2s is Lancelot Crimson General, who's very good at getting some early damage in, as well as potentially sneaking in late game. Moving on to our level 3s, we start with 3-of Pyrrhic Apex Memoria, code Heart. A great SIGNI, as she counts as either blue or black, can get spells out of your deck, thin your deck for spells, and has removal that you can use. Just an overall good SIGNI for this deck that gives us exactly what we need. Next up is a singular Animirage Doomed Evil. This is a good SIGNI I like to put in a lot of my decks, as it's just a nice removal spell and a 13k body. Moving on to a 2-of Brynhildr Azure Angel Queen, drawing you cards, getting rid of cards you don't need, and potentially, if she attacks, making your opponent discard cards at random. Moving on, we have Miko Memoria Bacteria Queen as a 2-of. This potentially hard to remove SIGNI can aid us in forcing our opponent to discard cards late game, on top of being a 13k body. Moving on to our final level 3 SIGNI for this deck, a 2 of m-odem code Heart. This SIGNI gives us the ability to use our spells in our discard pile as removal spells, and allowing us to either mill our opponent or mill ourselves if we're trying to find spells. A lot of cards in this deck care about the spells you cast. Being able to cast draw spells early in the game to set yourself up for removal spells later in the game allows for some very nice synergy with m-odem and the other SIGNI in this deck. Also, she has a silly hat. Finally, we're at the spell portion of this deck. Starting with a 4 of Trouble, a 2-cost spell that draws you 3 cards. Remember that Milulun's ability lets you cast 4 enter worth of spells, so 2 of these equals 6 cards, which is a very nice return. Next we have a 1 of Thrilling, which gives us a draw 2 with a draw 3 effect if you pay the exceed 4 cost. It does also not take up a life burst spot, as most spells tend to do. Next up is one of the best spells in the deck, Random Drain, as a 4 of. This spell makes you draw a card and forces your opponent to discard a card. It also costs 1, making it very easy to cast by yourself on your turn without any other effects. Lastly, we have a fun spell here, Blazing Monochrome, as a 2 of. For 2 enter, you can draw 2 cards. Then if you have 1 or less Life Cloth, it flips over to Rebellion Encore and immediately goes onto your field. This SIGNI lets you discard 3 cards to put any SIGNI in your opponent's trash. Finally, we're at our last section, the Life Bursts. Starting with Typhon Doomed Evil's Life Burst. By discarding a card, you can give something minus 12k on your opponent's field. Very good removal, as we should have a lot of cards in our hand. Anna Mirage's Life Burst lets us pick up a SIGNI from our trash without a guard back to hand, or put it onto the field. Brynhilder's Life Burst lets us use the cards in our hand as removal spells, or makes our opponent discard a card at random. A very nice Life Burst that works even if we don't have cards in hand. Trouble has a very simple Life Burst, which just lets us down up to 2 target SIGNI on your opponent's field, potentially taking 2 damage off the board. Madoka Memoria's Life Burst can potentially turn off an LRIG attack or a strong SIGNI attack by making your opponent have to discard 3 cards to even attack with it. Random Drain has another very good burst that downs target SIGNI in your opponent's field and freezes it, then makes them discard a card, very strong early in the game. And rounding out our Life Burst, we have our Servants, which just lets us pick up any SIGNI from our trash to hand. And that's the deck. I hope you enjoyed this deck tech of Milulun Spells. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I like to hear what you think about this deck tech, what kind of changes you would make to this deck, and other types of decks you'd like to see me cover on a future deck tech. Thank you again for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and have a good one.